You could introduce our...
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Live from the city of Erie, Pennsylvania, with your host, Kaz Kwiatkowski and John Steiner. You are watching Taxpayer's Hotline.
Well, John, live from the corner of 7th and South Park Row.
Absolutely. Kaz, welcome back to the city limits.
I don't know if I can... I'm having trouble adapting.
You know, you got to readapt back to the city of Erie. You don't know what's going on around here.
After seeing Chi-Town, it's...
Little Chicago action.
Yeah, you want to introduce our...
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself, young man.
Hello everybody, I am Blake Johnson, an intern here at the City of Erie. Today is my first day on the Taxpayers Hotline.
Did a certain councilman put you up to it?
Yeah, Curtis Jones right in the audience, smiling away.
You know,
He's a legend in his own mind, he tells me, but he's a good guy, though.
This is a good learning experience for young guys, you know.
When you see Curtis go like this, and you'll know what that means. But inside joke, but...
Actually, Kaz, we have a caller on the air already.
You want to go ahead?
Go ahead. She's already there, I think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, caller.
Hey, good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon.
Nice to be here to talk to you. I have 4 real quick comments I would like to make. The first one is I was just on my way home, and there was a red parking authority car that almost blew the stop sign. They were so busy on their cell phone. You guys tell them they shouldn't be on their phone if they're driving. It's really not safe. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was...
Did you get a number of that car?
No, I didn't. I should have. I wish I would have.
Was it male or female? That might help a little bit.
I think it was a male. I think it was a male. You know, women wear their hair real short, so it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, they really should be. The only exemptions we ever made in the ordinance were for public safety.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're public safety.
Yeah. The next thing I wanted to talk about was I met a very delightful man who was in the city from Pittsburgh the other day to address, it was part of that summit that the mayor had on how to improve Erie, and he was with the former mayor from Pittsburgh. And I met him down at the Sheraton. I was sitting there in the lobby, and he struck up a conversation with me, and he was absolutely amazed to hear that we are not allowed backyard chickens here in Erie because they allow them in Pittsburgh. And he agreed with me that they eat bugs and insects, and you don't have to spray all the toxic chemicals like we do, like they sprayed at Frontier Park the other day and stuff. It really eliminates a lot of pests. And we have in our backyard quite a problem with ticks lately. And I don't spray because everything I do is organic. But if I had backyard chickens, I wouldn't have the problem with the ticks that we're having. So if you could put that food for thought, I don't want somebody to have a cow, but to have 4 or 5 chickens in their backyard and no roosters, I don't think there's no harm, no foul there.
Yeah, but the problem is, from what I got numerous complaints. I've been having them for about 1.5 years. It started with 19th Street, and there's a group of, I'll say this honestly, they had this problem back when I was a young man. And it was the immigrants from Poland and Italy and the Germans and the Irish before them. They brought that over, but over the years, they tried to clean that up because it got out of hand. It's become a problem again, and to some neighbors, they just don't like the noise, they don't like the traffic. We got one guy that I was told is openly selling the chickens, and it's well known to the immigrant community, and it was brought to my attention that, you know, he's out there selling in violation of, you know, he's running a business actually. And then the issue comes up about religious rights. Well, and you know, but I think, you know, there was a good reason why Jim Thompson and the previous council passed that ordinance, and I personally, I don't think I want my city turning into Farmville.
Well, I'll tell you, Kat.
And I think it gets out of hand too quick.
There was one morning where I live in the inner city, and I was laying in bed, and I literally, I heard roosters. I was sleeping,
Yeah.
and I thought I was dreaming. I was like, that cannot be a rooster.
Well,
And sure enough,
you know,
it kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And
they're going to have roosters because, the obvious reasons, and it's going to go out of hand. I it may be food for thought, but, people are mad at us. People are mad at council for even allowing this gardening thing, and they're afraid that's going to get out of hand. So I think we got to sit down and have some soul searching about which direction we want our community to go to. I'm not saying, yeah, pigs and that's the obvious, but when I was a kid, I had a neighbor that had ducks and all that, and it got pretty ugly, and it wasn't taken care of.
There's a difference between taking care of things.
You should check with Pittsburgh to see how they do this.
I'm going to, but I don't think you see it downtown though. And downtown in Erie is not very big. So when you got people growing them on Parade Street, which is not very far from the center city, we're not talking out by my house or the outskirts of the city. We're talking about, is that what you want in, I don't know. But I noticed like this, even these grass ordinances are getting, where we're starting to look like, it's not a well-kept city. So I think we need to have a soul-searching meeting about which direction we want to go. I mean, I go to Pittsburgh and I have never seen chickens. I don't know where they are, but I've stayed in different parts of the city.
If you keep them in a little hen house in your backyard, and if you are educated on the proper way to keep chickens, they can be a very positive aspect into as you relate to quality of life. And I know you guys are all about quality of life lately. The other thing this gentleman was talking about was he talked about one of the major recommendations that they made to the city. Mm-hmm. I almost fell out of my chair. I had him repeat it twice. I wasn't quite sure. But he was saying that they recommended that we spend $15 million renovating Northern Park South Row. I couldn't believe he said that since they just did renovate Northern Park South.
What does he want done with it?
I have no idea, but I mean, I don't have the tax dollars to pay that, and I don't care if it comes from a grant or not. It comes from my tax dollars eventually.
I'd be interested in what he thinks that we need for $15 million. I mean, look, the ice rink idea was a good idea. That's been talked about for years. But you don't need $15 million to put a temporary ice rink in the park or somewhere else.
Well,
I would like to know, what he thinks we need for $15 million.
Yeah, right.
I mean, what's he going to put a bigger fountain in? I mean, we just spent money on that fountain.
well, that's what I thought. I thought the park looks pretty good. I don't know how many people would actually go down and go ice skating down there, especially since we have and other places that people can ice skate.
That's not true, though. If you look at it, we've actually lost ice skating rinks. Until J.C. Martin gets renovated, you can't use the Civic Center. Mercyhurst is limited. We lost the one on the east side. They're building one presently in Summit. But actually, downtown, we don't have much. And I just come back from Chicago, and Pittsburgh does this, too. They freeze they're like around the couple fountains, and in Chicago they have a dedicated ice skating rink that becomes a roller rink in summer, and they got a mountain climbing thing there. It's all integrated into their park. We don't have to do it downtown. We could do it at Gridley, we could do it Burton Park, but for cheap entertainment, if you go to these other ice rinks, you gotta, it's going to cost you. But I think if the city did it, and we had a very, I think you would be surprised how many downtown workers would take a half an hour to skate.
Well, my last point is...
Go ahead.
You need to buy your wife flowers.
Me?
You need to buy your wife flowers. She is so smart. Honestly, I thought wife and sent prayers her way 24 times since I heard that she is also down on fluoridating our water. You know, the city or the water authority put out a bid for hydrofluorosilicic acid. That's what they add to our water.
Right.
And if you look at the MSDS sheet for hydrofluorosilicic acid, it says, do not swallow, do not get on your skin. So we drink it and we shower in it.
Yep, you're against it, right?
Oh, very much so.
Well, you know, there's a lot of, there's some males, but there's a lot of females that it's not good for. And
It's not good for anybody.
well, no, and here's the thing. If you wanted to have fluoride, what we could have done is we could have gave out mini grants to people or vouchers.
Yeah.
They could have went down and got their, fluoride pills, if that's what they wanted to do, their own decision.
Well,
You know, but to automatically do it, I think was wrong.
stop it. Then you have the power.
I think, that's an interesting question. I think if we had people that we thought we could deal with on the Water Authority Board and I had a consensus of council, I think I'd bring it forward. So maybe I will bring it up and,
You know, I always thought it was a big mistake when they put it in there first place.
Yeah.
And then when, I know there was, remember you guys had a big fight about it, and then when they finally did add the fluoride,
Yeah.
everybody started drinking bottled water, you know, and so it just like,
well, you remember there were a few board members on the authority that were, against it.
yeah,
But they divided and conquered and he got it through.
yeah. I mean,
And the water authority. City council can do that.
With the Water Authority,
As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, when
they're pretty much independent, so what it's gonna take is, it'll take, like it did last time, it'll take the mayor and council working in consort to force the issue. And I think I will bring it up, and I wish some people would start bringing it up again.
the one thing you guys have over the Water Authority, though, is that you guys have to guarantee any bonds that they take out or any money or anything like that. How long is did they just update the agreement
I
between?
gotta check into that. They did, and it was done a few years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long they extended. We'll take a look.
I mean, the caller's right. I mean, I totally agree with her on that.
What's gonna take is a public outcry
Yeah.
and then council and the administration. If you remember last time they pulled it off, the administration was in favor of it at the time.
Right. Well, wasn't Mario like screaming against it or something
Well,
like that?
his appointment was a lady named Ann DeMarco who was against it.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Well, you have an obligation to protect the citizens of Erie. And if you heard that someone was putting arsenic in the water, you would go and arrest that person. Personally, I think if the Water Authority continues with this, they should be arrested. This is toxic poison they're putting in the water.
Well, I would agree with you. I can agree that chlorine is necessary,
Chlorine is somewhat necessary, but
but not, the other stuff is, like my wife, she suffers from a problem that just exacerbates it. Excuse my language.
Exasperates?
Exasperates it, yeah. And it's not good, And a lot of females have that problem. And it's well known.
that when the hydrofluorosilicic acid goes through our pipes, it leaches the lead from the pipes and increases the amount of lead intake at the end of the spigot and at the end of the shower, and we're getting so much more lead on top of the poison, the hydrofluorosilicic acid. I talked to everybody. I went to the mayor's house 3 days after he was elected and gave him a ton of research, medical, documented, actual research, not conspiracy theory stuff, the real articles from the Lancet Journal, which is the most respected medical journal, and I'm getting nowhere. I'm getting nowhere, and I really need your help. Kaz, please buy your white flowers. If I knew where you'd live, I'd send you white flowers.
Oh, you can find me. I'm right in the phone book, so.
She's really a smart woman, and I kudos to her. I'm just absolutely thrilled that I'm not the only female on the planet talking about the hazards of fluoride.
No, there's a lot of people who didn't want it. In fact, when I was a kid, they had two vicious fights where they actually had I still have a campaign pin made. Vote no, vote yes on fluoride.
I mean, she's right, though.
It's back in the 50s, and the battle has never ended, you know.
Fluoride does need to come out. I mean, we need to be fresh water. We should be we should be marketing ourselves, the freshwater capital of the world. I mean, there's so much you can, and you can't do much with the chlorine and all, and the stuff that she just said. She's right on that, yeah.
It causes ADD, ADHD, dementia, and Alzheimer's are the biggest triggers on top of all the other neurotoxic diseases and conditions. I mean, and if people want the fluoride, just go get the pill.
That's what I said. We could have gave little vouchers out.
Or brush your teeth, one of the two.
Well, no, I mean, if you know, some dentists tell the little kids to take it. It doesn't do anything for older people.
Well, back in the
Because
day,
we're already done. Well, I mean, that's how they figure it, you know.
I don't
So this is about young kids, and, you know, if you want them to have it, that's fine. That's your decision.
I mean, I don't understand how back then they thought it was a good idea to even do that. I really don't, but
Well, if you read a lot of things about the old days, a lot of things they thought were good.
yeah,
We won't discuss them on the air, but
yeah, right.
Do you know, if you guys contact Ralph Stewart, he's the city manager at Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. In Bellefonte, they stopped water fluoridation.
hey, send that information to me.
I did already, Kaz.
You did?
I
What,
emailed
did you send it to my city account or my private one?
your city account. Do you have a private one?
Yeah, but I wonder, sometimes the city one will eradicate certain things,
Yeah.
because if they don't recognize the address.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they probably don't recognize my address.
Call me off the air at City Hall here, and I'll give you my private one, okay?
I will do that because, Kaz, I'm passionate about this.
Okay.
Think about the little babies whose mothers get the water for the formula at the sink, so they've got fluoride there. There's fluoride in the formula, and there's fluoride in so many food items. You look at a tube of toothpaste, and it says, "Do not swallow." What is it?
Poison control?
Poison control. If you swallow it.
I know a little baby that swallowed them one time.
I have.
They had to pump out their stomach pretty good.
Yeah, it's
taste
dangerous
appetite.
stuff, and they're just, plus, you know, I practiced medicine for a lot of years, and if I wanted somebody to have a prescription, like a prescription for fluoride, you have to get out a prescription pad, write the prescription, and then they go to the pharmacy. Where does the water authority have prescriptive authority to treat, mass medicate without informed consent?
Well, the sad part was you had dentists on both sides fighting that argument. I remember that battle before council.
But see, if any dentist worth their salt took a look at the MSDS sheet for hydrofluorosilicic acid, they'd find out that they are fighting something they have no clue. Because look at, I have a copy of the city's bid for hydrofluorosilicic acid, okay? Mm-hmm. But if you look at the MSDS sheet, do you know what that is?
Material safety data,
Oh, you know, John, huh?
yeah.
Okay, so John, pull up the material safety data sheet for hydrofluorosilicic acid. And any dentist who thinks that that should be added into the water should not be practicing dentistry.
Correct me if I'm wrong, caller, but there was a big article in the news, and we were downgraded as far as water quality not too long ago, correct?
Yeah. On top of that, out of 62, aren't there 62 counties in Erie, or in Pennsylvania, and Erie is number 57 as it relates to health. The other thing is Erie Insurance did a survey, and they talked about reasons for car accidents. Okay, the biggest reason for car accidents is people daydream and get lost in thought. Well, you know what? If you're drinking fluoride, it's going to totally disrupt your ability to concentrate. If you're showering in this fluoridated water, it's going to disrupt your ability to concentrate. I sent you that, Kaz.
Okay, I'll go back and look and see if it's in the other file that they killed, like.
Yeah, there was a big article about,
I'll call City Hall and ask to speak to you after 3 o'clock.
Okay,
Okay?
thanks for calling.
Thanks for having me on the air.
Okay,
no problem.
Bye-bye.
You know, they did drop, there was an article where they dropped the water quality, and there was about the hydrochloroacidic or whatever.
yeah.
It's an issue, for sure. You guys, that's definitely something you should look at.
Go ahead, caller.
Hello.
Yep.
Hey, I just wanted to point out that, it's been years now. The American Pediatric Association came out and said under no circumstances should you ever use fluoridated water to reconstitute baby formulas. So, I mean, the evidence is out there and it's building every day, but that's a major medical group coming out and saying don't use the water to make baby formula.
Yeah, that tells you some.
You know, so I mean, you know, just start there. The rest of the stuff, you know, it's a matter of conjecture and whose study you're going to believe. But when the Pediatric Association says don't do it, I think maybe people should listen.
Yeah, I just think the more stuff you add, the more trouble you get into.
Well, the FDA just, was it last year, came out and said we were wrong by 50%, reduced the amount of fluoride in the water?
You know, another thing that people from foreign countries tell me this. They are amazed at how bad our food is because we put all these chemicals into it on our processed food. And we got all these problems now, obesity and diabetes, all that. And in Europe, they still put out the same bag of Doritos, but without all that stuff that we put in there. And, you know, but we allow all this stuff. We don't even know what they're putting stuff in there like wood chips and plastic chips. And you don't even know what the heck you're, you know.
Right.
And when I was a kid in the old days, they used to laugh at us. They would take a tomato out of a garden. You don't want to know what we fertilized it with.
Pesticides.
No. Natural pesticides, natural stuff.
Natural fertilization.
Okay, and you know what? Nobody died. You washed it off.
Yeah.
Nobody died. I'm still around, you know.
Rinsed it off and ate it.
Yeah, now we put all this stuff in there and people are walking around like they're glowing in the dark.
Yeah.
We all got problems with our ADA or different things, you know.
Now they're juicing up the cows.
Well, yeah, you know, you find out that, you know, a real orange, you ever been to Florida?
One time.
Yeah.
You didn't see any oranges that were orange, did you?
Of course not.
Bananas aren't yellow, they shoot them up with gas, you know.
Yeah, they got to paint them before they send them here. Hey, real quick question for you. Why is it that virtually every other country in the world prohibits Roundup?
Oh, you mean
Prohibits what?
you mean Roundup the chemical?
Yeah.
Oh.
Do they know something we don't? I mean, seriously, I don't understand why. Do they hate our industry so much that they're making up stories?
I don't think that stuff even works, to be honest. I've tried it before. It don't even work.
What is that for? You know, I don't use it. Is that for like
Kills weeds and stuff.
Oh, weeds.
Yeah.
I heard it was cancer.
You don't want to get my generation talking about weed removal.
The young man says it's cancer. What does it do?
I heard it was cancer chemicals.
Well, they had, when I was in the military, the guys in Vietnam era know what I'm talking about. We don't want to talk about it.
Oh, Agent
Okay?
Orange or whatever?
But we had this stuff that would kill bugs like you couldn't imagine. Take varnish off of tables too. And the stuff they used to eradicate the weeds, they called it defoliation.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
and they made that stuff in Erie.
You know, that is something.
And
that-
you know what, and this Roundup and stuff like that, well, they'll tell you that even the stuff you put in your lawn is not good long range. That there are, you know, natural chemicals
you know,
that.
we've had a couple callers talking about the whole water.
Okay, well,
Go ahead, caller.
sure, guys.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
thank you. But you know, he's right. You know, when you get into all this stuff that we've been doing, that goes into the water. You know, it goes down, drains, and you know, there's a reason why. You know, they used to laugh and they'd say the ocean is big and the lake's big, but now all of a sudden we're discovering that every time you flush your aspirins and everything down your toilet, it's got to end up somewhere.
Well, that's what, you know, when they
You know.
do the, where you return your medication, you know, they have for a lot of seniors and stuff, because what they're doing, they do it that way, because what they're doing is just dumping it down to the toilet, then it ends up into the water system, which is just not good.
And when we were kids, John, we had recycling. They used to actually pick up pop bottles and milk bottles and wash them. And you had a whole bunch of guys that was their job. They had jobs. People had to wash these things and redeliver them. But then we went to plastic. Now we don't know what to do with all this stuff. It's all,
Maybe you guys should, on council, maybe look into the water thing. I mean, those are good points.
I think it is a good point. It will really help. It would be if the public got involved, and there's a little bit about the squeaky wheel when those chairs are filled out there.
Yeah.
It makes a little people up here think a little different sometimes.
Right.
But you hate to say that, but
Right. I mean, with us being on Lake Erie, freshwater, we should be the freshwater capital of the
you
world.
got a young man here now. His generation's going to take over.
Yeah.
Hopefully someday, yeah.
Well, you will.
Yeah.
It happens.
And hopefully, our generation, we start the ball rolling so that you guys, and I think, a lot more, statistically, a lot more younger people have registered to vote.
I think a lot. Yeah, and I think a lot.
Definitely,
Well, young kids need to vote.
Yeah.
But I also notice my son and his generation, they're not as enamored with the stuff we were, like fast food.
How old are you?
18.
You registered to vote?
Yes, I am.
That a
Whoa,
boy. That's
you
what
got
I
that
wanted to
guy.
hear. Good job by your
Go ahead,
mentor.
sir.
Hey, Kaz, how are you?
Good.
Hey, that caller was very interesting, and you're right about some of the things. One thing you might want to consider, we talked about plastic bottles and that, why doesn't Pennsylvania have, like New York, with their, they give you a nickel back for, like even the cans and stuff,
Well, that's a good question to ask our legislators. Yeah, everybody else has you look on there, it's like 3 to 7 cents.
Right.
Well, when we were kids, we had that. Do you remember?
Right, I remember collecting bottles.
Yeah, you had to pay a 10-cent pop was 12 cents.
I used to get 2 cents for a small bottle and 5 cents for the big.
Right, and then you came back and the grocer wouldn't give you cash. Some would, but they give you credit. So,
think
that
they
bought our
should.
baseball cards and our candy,
Don't they do that in New York State still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the caller said, a lot of states, when you buy it,
Yeah.
they charge you. So if you don't bring it back,
Right.
that money's
Right.
money's
It's
lost.
into the system, right.
So, yeah, but yeah, it's not unusual, but we'll bring that up to our legislators and see what they say.
Another thing you were talking a little bit ago, I just tuned you in a little bit. You were just talking about animals in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, down in Pittsburgh, there are places where people have chickens and goats and that in the city. My daughter had
It's-
one time had some, but she doesn't now.
It's got to be zoned probably though, right?
Oh, they even had some of the city police wondering where the rooster crow was coming from.
Yeah, see, that opens up a whole new problem.
It does. And again, it's not so much it helps some of the families, like for her, she was able to raise some chickens with eggs and that worked out fine. She doesn't have many more kids. There are problems to go with raising animals in the city.
But this ain't nothing new. When I was a kid, the Polish community was noted for pigeons, and they also had ducks and geese. So the Italians, they had them in their basements, they had them in the backyards. And, we discovered that that's not what cities do, over the years. And we got out of that. Now it seems like, there's a new wave of immigrants, and I understand it, but I spent my whole life trying to get Erie out of the moniker that people would call it Erie R.F. Mayberry, and
I think sometimes we need to look at that. What would be interesting, though, there are some people who live in the city who have their animals on farms outside the city limits.
yeah, I got people to complain to me about the dogs alone. People leave their dogs out, and I never had this problem, but I had 6 deer roaming my backyard in wintertime, and it's a result of the way we do things today. Is we're not building south, we're building north also. So we're squeezing these animals. We had a black bear one day across the bay during the ice. So, and now I never remember seeing, I don't know about you, John, do you ever remember seeing as many crows as we had?
So the crows have picked up where the pigeons have decreased, I've noticed.
Yeah, and so I got woodchucks. I got one. I'm having a heck of a time getting them. I had one under my steps. he burrowed underneath there, you know, because they come out of the fields that are empty as we tear property down. But, you know, Jim Thompson had a good idea, you know. His idea of waking up more is not having a goat run down, you know, his street. I mean, if that's what you want.
Well, you got to have there's a fine line between urban and rural. You know, I live in the city because I want city
Right.
life.
That's what I want. I mean, if I tell people, you know, and with all due respect to them, if you want to look at the stars and you want to be able to see the night sky and all that stuff, well, you know, you're probably not going to see it in the city.
Right, live out in the county, out in the city, out outside the city lights.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you want, then you got to have another lifestyle. You know, when I drive into a major city, I see a big glow. You know, and the same people who want to turn the lights off in the city, can you imagine walking down the street at night dark with almost 100,000 people roaming those streets? I mean, you think about that.
Well, we don't need to go that far. I mean, city lights, we don't really have enough city lights on the streets as it is. We could always use more.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, you know, yet I got people that approach council and want to shut down the lights.
Right.
You know,
I know what you mean, save electricity in that.
yeah, I mean, well, not the electricity, they don't like the ambient light. And I'm going, you know, there's a price you pay when you live in a metropolitan area. There are things that, you know.
Some of those LED lights are kind of like,
Pardon?
so the LEDs, some of those that they have, they are kind of,
Well, you know, you can,
Right.
I'll tell you this, John, I want to see, you know, not that we are New York City, but try going to Vegas or New York City and telling them to turn down the lights, you know?
well, there's a difference. The little bit of a difference is when you go there, you expect that. But in Erie, when you're driving down the street
Yeah.
and you don't expect it and it goes poof.
Well, merchants are looking for the edge, you know, years ago they had, you don't remember when the Warner actually had a sign that, you know, flashed up and down with lights?
It lit up, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, but it traveled, you know, the lights traveled.
It traveled? I don't remember that, no.
Yeah, they went around, they actually, you know, you had signs on State Street where the lobster claws closed. You know, we had a beer one up above that,
These
the
people
ball
like
of beer
parties.
emptied into the glass. You know, that was back in the 60s, okay, in the 50s. And now merchants are looking for that same edge. How do I get you to look at my business?
Right.
So if I can get you to see all the purple lights on my building, you know, if that's my color scheme, or green lights, you know, that gets you.
Right.
But,
The reason I called, though, Kaz, is I've had the opportunity to be with the mayor for his Thursday luncheon, and listened to all the people that were there. There were 13 of us around the table, and everything was interesting. A lot of it was same old stuff. You know, we need to get rid of the blight. We got a lot of garbage on the streets and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
And one of the issues, though, that seemed to be another issue that comes up, and I don't know why we just have not tried to do the best we can to eliminate, and that is the disparity of not enough minorities on the police and fire department. I know the fire department, from what I was told, they're going to have some kind of program at a high school, I think, I don't know if it's Central or someplace, to introduce the class, certain grades, I guess, to what it means to be a fireman, what constitutes the role of being a firefighter, and how do you go about becoming one. But we need to do that at the police department and other, say, labor union groups. But remember, they used to have those apprenticeship programs.
Yeah.
So why aren't we trying to help get the unions people into the schools to
Let me address this one.
introduce kids to other types of jobs other than computer jobs?
actually, Doc, there's good news. And I can't comment on it. I've asked some of my good friends in the minority community, what's wrong? I mean, every guy that comes out of the military should be consulted. They've done that. I hear they're doing that now. Everybody gets discharged. They're approaching them. Every guy in the Navy has some kind of firefighting skills, because when you're on a ship, it is only you. Okay, so you do have a fire crew, but it's amazing to me. But you know, recently I saw in the news, I don't know how true it is, but they claim that the Mercyhurst is running the school now. So when you only have to take one test. You don't have to take one from Mill Creek. You don't have to take one with Erie. You pay one fee, you go up to Mercyhurst, your name goes on a list, and they draw from that. Now, they claim, and I saw some of the minority members up there talking about, you know, it's time to, you know, stop talking the talk and walk the walk. You know, I'm doing it, you should do it. And they're telling people in their community to come out. They're taking the test. They said it was one of the better minority classes in numbers. But yeah, we have a long way to go, but somebody's got to come up with the reason. Look, it's not that we won't hire them. You know, we had a deputy chief of police. I think she was not treated properly, but we had a fire chief.
I remember when I came here, there was one black lady on the police force. She was a great lady.
Yeah.
She was a wonderful person to talk and deal with.
And you know, we have, you know, and then it depends what you call minority. So you have to be careful, you know.
One other,
Minorities can be women, Latinos, it can be everything. But yes, I agree with you. I don't know the answer. There's people that are more qualified than me to come up with that solution. But it's not for lack of not wanting to hire them.
well, you know, one of the other things you brought up, caller, was the trade unions and this and that. And it's funny that you said that, because I was at a Democratic dinner a few months ago, and Jack Lee, who was the head of the building trades,
Yeah,
who
he's
was
a Summit Township supervisor.
He's a Summit Township, and he's like the leader of the trade unions. And he was saying that, you know, we don't have enough apprentices and other people that are into the building trades, because as we move forward, everybody, like you said, everybody's into computers. So Frank Petrunga from the school board is a good friend of mine. So I said to Jack, I talked to him at a fundraiser a couple weeks later. I said, why aren't you guys collaborating with the Erie School District to where you guys develop the apprenticeships and get the kids right out of school to move them right into the building trades to go along with the programs that they run up at Central Tech?
Yeah, we used to do that years ago.
So now, I mean, that, you know, those two, you know, they have their meetings. I think they meet over here at the Union Hall or
Well,
something.
you know, when I was at TAC years ago, they did have the union worked in conjunction with the schools.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, there's something to be said that not every kid needs to go to college.
Right. Well, see,
That, you know, you can make a lot of,
you know the old saying, the world needs ditch diggers?
Yeah, they
We
do.
do. We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need those.
Carpenters, yeah.
Carpenters. Those are the types of jobs that pay good money, but they're going by the wayside, and that's where community
Jack
college
Langer
comes
made
in.
You ever read the story of Jack Langer?
Yeah, he's loaded. I mean,
He stood on the street corner with a sign,
yeah,
I'll work for you. Now
Yeah.
you look at him, right?
Yeah.
And he went, I think he went to prep and everything. And you would have thought he was the guy who's going to go to.
the fact that we have no community college is an absolute joke.
It probably, but you know what? Here's what I think. If they do the community college, they need to do it for skills we need.
Absolutely. You have to, that's where you would develop something with the manufacturing associations and all these businesses.
Here's where the school district.
You have the workforce for the trades, building trades, carpentry, masonry, the average age is 55 years old. Though that whole generation is going. Is the
But I
caller
mean-
still there? Is the caller?
No, are you off, caller?
No, I'm still here. So one last question.
Go ahead.
Who could I call at City Hall about these neighborhood watch programs? Because you know where I live.
Yeah.
Is there a neighborhood watch program in my area? If there is, who would be the one I need to contact to?
I'm trying to think if it's Liz Allen or Bobby Mursky. That's a liaison. I'll get them to call you.
Do that, will you please?
I'll get the list.
We don't have, I'd like to see.
You may not have one in your area. That's a problem.
Well, see, that's it, and then, I'm thinking what we need to do is have somehow a layout of the city and on like a map, show the different blocks and what neighborhood watch program is involving those blocks.
Yeah, because I don't have one. I'm one block out of the closest one.
Are you?
And I used to line with them.
I thought you were with the Mercyhurst crew.
Yeah, but that's technically not covers my area.
Oh, that's out
But I went up there because the problems affected my area.
Right,
The college kids moving in there affected.
right.
So, yeah, Doc, I'll take a look at it, okay?
I'd like to see it get better organized and at least maybe a resource information guide for somebody says, I live on such and such a block, you know,
Yeah, well, the police actually like those groups because
contact person.
they train you how to, react to problems.
The police really, the city does really support the neighborhood watch.
Because they train them properly and they tell them what to look for, when to call.
Yeah, I mean, they're at all the meetings, when I was attending.
Oh, good to hear your voice again. Hopefully you had a great travel when you went
Yeah,
gone.
I actually saw all my kids in a 2-week period.
So that's great to hear. I wish I could have. And John, thanks for filling in there for him.
No problem. Thanks for calling and
We gotta get this young
participating.
man to talk. He hasn't talked yet.
You guys are doing the talking for me.
No, thanks for calling, Doc.
Take care.
So about those chickens, what are you gonna do about that?
Well, it hasn't come up.
Hasn't come
We
up?
have an ordinance against it,
Yeah.
but what's happening is it's happening illegally. And trying to get code enforcement and administration on board,
By where I live, Kaz,
it'll
there
take a little
are,
pushing.
you know the saying, why do the chickens cross the road?
Yeah.
They like cross the roads in my
If
neighborhood.
you watch my last council
Literally.
meeting, I told administration I've had complaints about it.
Well, then you have the deer come in, then they eat what's fed to the animals. Then you have the waste, rats, and then you have
Well,
crows.
It's
Yeah.
fine if you take care of it. But I'll give you an example. There was a case in a big township here where they had something like that was grandfathered. And they weren't happy with it. So, I mean, if Mill Creek, try that in Mill Creek. They didn't want to let bees in there. They kicked out a bee farmer. There's a reason why you do things, okay? When you live in the city, you have made a decision, a certain lifestyle, just like you do when you live in a rural area.
Right?
And, trying to mold them is, I don't know what good it would do. It's like the old art, it happens every time there's, at least in my lifetime, it happens every time there's a new wave of immigrants.
Exactly. With us being open to the immigration population, you're going to run into cultural differences.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is, immediately acclimate them as to what the laws and the rules are of the city. But then you start talking about community gardening and all these things like that. They do have their pros and their cons.
Yeah.
If they're well taken care of and well kept by the community, then okay.
Well, when we did the gardening, those were specific areas that, like you're reading about now, we're actually going to garden marijuana on the Hammermill site.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they just announced that the state opened up the license.
Really?
So I think it's on the Brickyard, they're going to be growing marijuana legally. And some of the brewers in some of these industrial parks, like you look at Savacchio Park and all them,
Yeah.
they haven't been touched.
Right.
We got, up by McClellan. So is it wrong to maybe have them, properly administered, growing hops and stuff like that? I don't think it's wrong. If it's done in a proper way.
Right.
But-
It all depends on what you're growing too.
Yeah.
Then you start getting, if it's not well maintained,
I
then
think
like
you
he
need-
said, then you start getting rodents and different.
Then you have to step in.
Yeah.
But I do think like the brewers and stuff that are growing hops, and I think the marijuana farm is going to be strictly administered, But those are all things
How
that,
are they gonna grow stuff on the hammer mills? It's all like concrete, isn't it?
I don't, what? That was the problem when they were going to develop there. There was a lot of foundations. And it would have been, this is why, do you remember the deal they wanted to make with council in the city?
For the casino?
When they were going to build a casino.
5 mil?
They wanted, if we would have got, the way I understood it, and I wasn't on council, but I think the way I understood it was, we got all the money because our budget was so high. Like Summit, they can't get to all the money.
We'd had $18 million a year, every year from.
Yeah,
since-
where Summit can only get so much and the county gets the
We'd have
rest.
had $18 million
Yeah, we would
a
have had
year.
it. So what they asked us for was, for a period of like 5 or 10 years, if we would give them back a couple of that million.
5 million.
Yeah, and what they were going to do with that was infrastructure. Now, they had to build a new road to come in, horse barns, all that stuff. But they also realized that the ground had to be remediated with you had concrete foundations in there and everything, which would have been costly.
You know why that failed, right? That was at the time when the elections were going on.
Yeah.
People on this dais right here
Yeah.
were running for the mayor's office.
Right, and it was a big,
The Times News the Times News wanted it on I-90. They thought it should go on I-90.
Yeah.
And what'd they do? People on this dais right here
yeah, they did.
decided that, I don't want to fight the newspaper. I need support.
And they sealed the fate of,
And now we lost $18 million a year.
and if we did, my suggestion would have been, I was controller then, but I didn't have I could only suggest. My idea would have been, you take that money, and unlike we did in the past, and Summit's doing it, and Mill Creek's doing it, when you're doing good, you don't think of the future.
I remember,
You only worry about what you got in your pocket today.
And-
If we'd have put that money away, into little pockets,
Yeah.
For different functions,
Yeah.
I think it would have helped us.
and that's when the former mayor, they had that drama
Yeah.
over there where they were trying to allegedly
There was a lot of crap going
pull
on.
some crap. So then there was so much political garbage going on at that time, it was
The
ridiculous.
bottom line is, we could have, if we'd have been prudent with that money. I mean, I always tell people,
$18 million is
Think- you
per year.
if you can be a liberal in how you apply things, but if you're a conservative in finances, and you say, you take that money and you say, okay, this pocket is for road repair, this pocket is for emergency, this pocket's for.
This pocket's for mini business grants,
Yeah. and
expanding businesses.
With 18 million,
This, that, the other thing.
if we don't spend it like a drunken sailor on a weekend, as the old saying used to be, what you do is you take that, you're right, John, like right now, we have a guy here at City,
Yeah.
Chris Groner,
Yeah.
who's scrambling to find ways to lend money out, because you got to, people, we had this argument about LRTA and everything, but sometimes you have to, there's an old saying that the Chinese think 500 years in the future, and we always think 3 hours. And that's true.
Yes, what you do is, let's say you have that money, you take that money, and then all of a sudden, let's say you're starting a business, you got your micro.
Use it to leverage.
You leverage that money. Okay, go to the state, hey, I got 10,000 from here, state has this matching
Yep.
grant, then you could look into federal grants, and then you could look into the Elm Street grants on State Street that they use for the DID. There's so many opportunities. If you take that little, and like you said, you leverage it, and then you triple it.
And John, think of the contribution we could have made to that downtown group right now. We could have made a little contribution.
This would have been before. We'd have some, do we have a rainy day fund anymore? Does the city have a rainy day fund?
Well, we do have a surplus a little bit, but can it always be better? Yes. But by the same token, sometimes a surplus hurts you.
Isn't there a law that you have to have a rainy day fund?
Well, no, there's a suggestion by what they call GOFA, which is a general rules of accounting for government agencies, that you should keep, I think it was like 2 or 3 months.
That's what I thought. I
But
don't
that's
know if
only
it
a
was a law.
suggestion. They can't tell you to do it if you're not, but it's prudent that, see, what people don't understand when we do things here, they think a budget is the shape of the city. It's not. The budget is only a guide.
Right.
You have to go into the financial records. So every year when we pass a budget, we put so much money in different accounts. That's an authorization for the mayor, the department heads to spend money.
What percentage of the budget is mandated? Like how much flexible money do you have as far as budgeting goes?
What do you mean mandated?
You have to pay the fire, the water, or the police.
Well, like
How much discretionary funds is in the budget?
there's not a lot. Everything's just, the only things that are what do you call it? You got wages and benefits
Right.
that were negotiated.
Pensions,
Yeah, and
health
then
insurance.
the rest is, that's up to the mayor, how do you keep the line on that? How thin do you want to cut departments? You make estimates on the fuel allotment, but the things that are concrete is, you got bond indebtedness,
Right.
that has to be paid. You know you have finance, wages, benefits, things like that. I'd say it's well over half probably, you know.
It has to be.
But the biggest cost is obviously public safety,
Right.
okay? In the city, that's just the way it is. But what happens is if you got money left over, that money goes into that fund, okay? So that, you know, when we come to January, we don't collect all of our taxes in January, okay?
Right.
What we used to do is take a loan. They called it a tran loan.
Oh, yeah.
It was
And
like
you would
a
balance the
bridge
budget.
loan. And the banks loved it, you know.
Hate that idea.
90 days, you took out a 90-day loan.
I hated that idea.
Well, you had to because you didn't plan, right? So what happened over the years, and it started with, you know, with the Senate and his administration, they decided that trans were a bad idea. So what we did is we started taking that money, you know, as it accrues into the funds, when you start the year, if you can do it, okay, you move money around a little bit with council's approval.
Yeah.
And you cover those things for the initial period in the beginning of the year before you have to, you know, because you know your taxes, the treasurer can tell you when they're coming in. It's like clockwork. She can tell you the percentages, hardly ever changes. But in the meantime, we haven't had to take out a tran load, so that's interest that we don't have to pay. And you work out of the fund balances. Some fund balances, like our insurance fund, because we're self-insured, we get a bad year where we get a lot of people with medical issues, that could hurt us.
Right.
But on the other hand, if we don't, we got a bank of money. And so looking at the budget is not going to tell you the shape of the city. You have to look at the CAFRA and the financial statements.
And your bond ratings and different things.
And that's been improving because it's been a slow process.
Right.
But, you know, you have to, we were in a hole, okay? And, you know, we're still not out of the hole yet. And it's going to take a lot of hard work, and people just can't give up, you know?
I've said it while you were gone a lot of times. I think we're going in the right direction. I think that the city, I think people are, the teamwork, I mean, would you agree, Kaz? I mean, the teamwork is just starting to really, between the city and the county, and even the school
Feel
district.
free to pipe in.
All right.
We need the young person here. But,
I want to ask you a question about the casino.
what?
The casino.
Go ahead.
So what was the point of putting it on the interstate? It seems like a waste of money
Well,
to put it there. Yeah.
at the time, we only had one bidder, which was bad. Allentown had two bidder. Allentown had one, Bethlehem had the other. And they got together and said, we're not going to fight. We're going to get the best deal. They made a deal with each other. We only had one bidder, and they were looking at the old green shingle site. Remember that, John?
Yeah.
They didn't really like that one. That was out by Fairview more.
There was like 3 or 4 sites.
Used to be a racetrack out there when we were young men. You don't remember that? No, I don't. It's gone. There's a industrial park there now. Wasn't a good track, though. But no casino, just a racetrack. They always liked the Summit site. You know, they're all, in Erie, were enamored on that upper Peach Street. That's what they used to call it a rim city. It's not a city, but it's become the new downtown. Everything's up there. So, you know, they figured that's a good spot. Hammermill was thrown in as an afterthought. And they gave it some thought, but because of the various problems, the remediation, the lack of a road network, because 12th Street was up here, but 6th Street was down here. So they were going to build an access road to come in and all that. So it just was, for some reason, they decided, their marketing people
They
decided.
built it on a wetland. I mean,
Huh?
they built that on a wetland.
Yeah.
Behind it is a wetland.
Right, and they had to
And then they have the geese come on the track. They even have deer sometimes. And it costs even more money to have the game commission come on in and take the
Yeah.
animals off the track.
You're right, and they
yeah.
had to remediate it
Yeah.
by building new wetlands.
You know, another reason why, that the newspaper wanted it up there was because you have the landfills up there. So in order to use that, they probably got money to develop that area. That's a brownfield.
Yeah.
And, with the dump site right there, that would be the type of development that you could put there because, you know, people come in and out, nobody's real, you know what I mean? There's no, because they gotta figure that whole area is contaminated up there.
And you know, here's the thing about, you don't remember this, okay? Well, I mean, you're young. But what's gotten into people's minds is that anytime anything new comes there, they don't look at anything else hardly.
That's I-90, and you know,
Yeah, you got a little bit in Harbor Creek, a little bit in West Mill Creek, but basically,
Peachtree, you look right there.
yeah, I've always said to people,
They'll bill right there instead of
you
down
want to
there.
go up there and knock your head off, you know, if you don't have something that's different, can you imagine if you're selling like, well, Mexican food, you look at it, you got 3 or 4 outfits beating each other over the head with the same kind of product, you know, you got to kind of say, well, wouldn't it make more sense maybe to move it over here? But they don't. They did their marketing. A guy told me that's a developer, and see if you catch on to this. I asked him why we couldn't get a Joe's Crab Shack. Now, they're out of business now, I think. They ran into a little difficulty. So they planned one up by the Mill Creek Mall a long time ago, because it's going to be near Max and Irma's. It fell through. There's supposed to be 4 stores there. Only 3 got built. A little problem, and Mill Creek gave them some trouble. So I asked him, well, how about on that new land on the other side of the road, you know, where you got Buffalo Wild Wings and all that? And he goes, how did he word it to me? We need like 200,000 people. Dumb me goes, yeah, we got it. We got 280 in the county. No. He goes like this. He draws a circle. He says, you got to have 200,000 in that circle. And I go, well, what's that circle? He said, about Erie and Mill Creek.
We don't have,
So we had maybe 160 in that circle.
yeah.
So then when the marketing companies come in, these people that deal with the restaurant chains and the retail chains, they get locked into this, you know, we got to build a mall here. It's like the mall craze. Yet now you're reading that malls are going down the tube because people are buying on the internet.
I think,
Amazon, eBay, all
Yeah,
that shop.
but when I was a kid, what happened was the downtown was the core. Then all of a sudden, somebody got the bright idea that since people have cars, we'll build a Westerly Plaza, a Liberty Plaza. That was the downfall.
and I think mixed use, the whole idea, is in big trouble. Take that call.
Go ahead, caller.
Hello, I don't mean to interrupt you,
Oh, that's okay. We want you to interrupt us.
Yeah.
but I just have an idea. Is there any way that each Monday you could have someone from a different department in the city?
I will ask them, but in the past, they were not receptive to that idea.
Well,
I haven't talked to the new administration, but it's a well-known fact that anybody from the administration can come on here anytime they want. But, you know, we got this young man, we had another guest on today that didn't show up, but we had this young man that filled in.
I don't think there's any way that they would.
I will bring it up, but, you know, don't take it to the bank yet.
Yeah.
Okay?
where does that young man work in?
I am an intern through the city clerk's office.
He's working with ex-Councilman Jones.
Yes, working with
Being on there.
Curtis
Thank
Jones.
you very much for being on there.
You're welcome. Thank you for calling.
I'm going to ask him a big question in a minute, though. Hey, thank you for calling.
Yep.
You're the lady on 19th Street, right?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I have met you. You got to meet this lady. She's
More people from different departments on your show so that we, the people, can ask them questions.
Oh, I wish you would. You know, so there used to be a fear in the past that when he came on the show, I didn't sanitize it. You know, you get the questions that are. I don't shut anybody off. As long as they're respectful, they can ask any question they want.
They did used to come on the show, but
Some of the questions were a little embarrassing, though.
yeah, because they might have to.
Don't make me ask the mayor. You know the mayor will come on there. Don't make me ask the mayor.
Actually, he should have his own show, really.
Yeah, really. He should have a show, but maybe not
A little different.
little different setup as far
Yeah.
as audience participation.
I will take your suggestion and ask him, okay?
And try to get them on there because we, the people, got a lot of questions for them.
Yeah, I've asked like the city arborist to come on here, talk about recycling and trees, the questions on that. I try to get the, different people on different subjects. Whoop,
Uh-oh.
this ain't good.
Down, just hit the
Yep.
side button.
Thank you for calling, ma'am.
All right.
Down Periscope.
Down Periscope. Now, this is the big question.
Ask away. Go
You
ahead.
register, but do you vote?
I have not voted yet. I just got my registration paper this
Okay.
past May, yeah.
So many kids I hear, yeah, I'm registered, but they don't vote,
Yeah.
You know, a lot of kids, a lot of Pennsylvania kids have registered to vote this year.
But you know what, though? When I was 18, you couldn't vote. And when I went into the military, I was 23 years old, I think, let me think.
You couldn't vote when you were, what?
Well, I could vote when I was in the military,
Okay.
but the guys I served with,
Oh,
who were 18,
interesting.
they were going to a strange land,
Oh,
which they had no input into, so
oh.
we learned that it was important for... Go ahead, caller.
Nobody wants to get into the kitchen.
Where, here you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the truth. I mean, you know what happened. The last one that was on there was Fred Rush.
yeah.
And, even under Jim Thompson and Councilman Bagnoni, they didn't know, very few guys ever wanted to come on here.
No, because they have to answer questions and they don't want to answer questions.
I've always said I'm not worried. Whatever happens will happen.
That's true. But I have one question.
Just one?
Well, time's running short.
Okay.
For you guys. The Grandview Boulevard, East Grandview.
Yeah.
Did Mill Creek pay and the city pay half and half?
No, what happens is, I'm trying to think. I used to know this because I asked it. Different parts of Grandview come under different rules. Like the Mill Creek will take one portion of Grandview all the way, John.
And we took the other half?
Yeah, and we do the other thing. As far as like police and everything, that's all.
Oh, I understand.
But as far as the
that,
main,
I was wondering, where did the city come up with the money to do their share from Pine Avenue to Conrad, and the city streets running south and north
Yeah.
up in that area are all deplorable. Now, Grandview wasn't that bad.
I will check to see what I used to know this because I asked it, and I thought it was like you. They do half, we do half, their half. But that didn't make sense because, you can't do half a street. So they explained to me that they got together years ago and they decided who would be, who would take care of it. And as plowing, I think they both plow.
They sure, yeah, they do. But
Yeah, but, I would double check for you, John.
I noticed a lot of sewer basins are falling in. They're
Yeah.
this size running on down. I called the sewer department a bunch of times on the ones up here.
We need a lot of infrastructure.
I've never seen a sewer cleaning outfit come, and I've complained a bunch of times. I see them down there on 38th and Old French Road. They did a couple there.
When are we going to get you up on the podium here?
Yeah, it won't be too long now. The wife's starting to feel better. But
Yeah.
The whole thing here is the one the job they just did. The manhole covers are worse than they were before. You hit them and bang, 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 and they're knocking tires out and rims and everything else. Are we the only city in the world or in the United States where they do not put their rings back properly?
No,
and
I
you
don't think
get a
we're the
good-
only one, but we're sure at the top 10.
Well, it's sad because you have a person from the state, you have a person who's doing the job, and an inspector and everything else, and they sign off on this.
I hate to say this, but it comes down to the will of the lead dog in the sled team.
Well, yeah, true, and
And,
the greased wheel.
Dog, yeah.
If the lead dog says, we're going this direction, you go to Pittsburgh and these other towns. Do you remember when we would close down a whole street, and in some of these towns, they'd put steel on the top of the holes so you could still use the street, right?
Right.
And then they demand, in some of the bigger cities, demand that you work around the clock too. But we're kind of complacent. We let people get away with things. They close streets at will without telling anybody, and
Yeah.
rings go back. They're not in good shape, and
Or just like when they did Grandview up there, they didn't notify anybody down below that the street's running south,
Nope.
going to be shut down.
Remember this, John, when mediocrity becomes
The norm.
the new norm, that's your standard of excellence.
You think?
No, that's true. When you accept mediocrity, that's now your standard of excellence.
That's true. You know, the whole thing there on the street paving, I'd like to have my street paved again, but the last time they were going to do anything, they had too many grades to go by. They were using grades from 1942 for crying out loud. Can you believe that? Where's your engineering department? And talking about departments, code enforcement, how many citations have they written?
Well, I'm going to ask them on the meeting on the 9th.
Well, you're going to have another meeting here pretty quick, and they're going to say they want to cite people for not keeping their grass cut and this cut. I want to see.
Council sent that up 4 years ago.
The ticketing.
Yeah, what happened?
Well, the administration at the time sat on it, and when I ran into Attorney Betza one day, I said, "What happened to all these things? We sent up?" That's when Councilman Jones was on. He can tell you.
He just left the past
I mean,
few months, yeah.
we set all that stuff up there, and Attorney Betza and Schembers,
running door to door asking people what they want done.
I asked Attorney Betza and due to him and Schember, they've taken it off the back burner. They wrote the ordinance. They had some suggestions. Council's going to look at it. It's something we wanted to see a long time ago because, when we go up there and cite somebody, then you got to wait all summer, and then you go to JP and he bounces it. Now we're going to issue tickets.
It's just like the loitering or throwing garbage out.
Yeah.
So up in Buffalo, what they do if you're caught on the interstate throwing something off, they pull you to the side of the road and they keep you there till they get enough of them, and then take you right to the JP and you pay right there on the spot.
There you go.
I mean, giving warning for jaywalking or throwing litter out or flicking butts on a corner, which a lot of people do constantly, they should be cited and held and taken right to a JP and say, "This is your fine. You were caught. Guilty, pay."
In Toronto, they actually find a driver, whether he's a cab driver, a private citizen. They find a driver for sure.
Are you guys
And
on
they
your?
go get it right now.
Is the city on the first reading of the
So
ticketing?
you're
Or?
running short, so have a great guy. John, you got a wonderful looking boy there.
Thank you. This is my
good
new adopted son.
Well, maybe he's smart, but I got two that are going to go to Carnegie Mellon,
There you go.
and they're smart too.
Absolutely.
And they're youngsters yet.
Yeah,
Have a good one.
you too.
Thanks.
Well, we better get off the air.
Yeah. One quick question: Are you on the first reading of the ticketing or the second
I'm
reading?
trying to remember now. I've been gone for 2 weeks.
I know you're out of the loop, Cass. Well, anyways, next week we'll talk
We've either
about that.
done one reading or you want to say something? Hang on a minute.
Say something. Sign off.
Yep, go ahead, you want to say something before you sign off?
I guess it was an honor to be here. I mean, thanks for having me, Kaz.
Well, no, actually, we never know what direction the show's going to take.
No.
So if you ever want to come back again,
Yeah.
feel free. We can always put
Actually,
another chair up. We've done that.
Wednesday is my last day.
Wednesday already?
Yeah, and then I start school.
Where are you going?
Mercyhurst. I start school the 22nd. Yeah.
Well, you can,
Yeah.
if you ever have free time, you can,
Stop by and visit. Yeah.
during the break period, if you'd like to come on, tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you want the replays are showed on YouTube, just Google Taxpayer Hotline Erie, and then they post it on there, and you can see the replay.
You live in the city, right?
Mill Creek.
Well, we'll forgive you.
I can still look, yeah.
Could
We'll
be
forgive
worse.
you, but-
Could be worse.
But yeah, if you want to come, and
Curtis
I'm going to hear from my cohorts on Mill Creek. They're gonna,
They'll
Yeah,
get
if you
over.
wanna come-
They don't watch this show. They don't have this channel.
oh, they watch. If you want to come back on sometime, feel free.
Yeah.
If you got a break period or,
Well, thanks for having us, Kaz, and good to see you back, and a lot of good stuff to talk about next show. So
did you learn anything or?
I learned more than I thought, yeah.
Well, you know what? Your generation has to take the next step now.
Yeah.
Okay?
absolutely,
It's up to you guys because
we're at the point where we got to get the ball rolling, and you guys got to run with it.
I can tell you this, and you may think that you can run to Mill Creek and hide people. They tell me this, or Summit. But the area is losing population.
Right.
Not just the city, the area. That's never a good sign. No. When we were holding the line, everybody goes, well, we're losing now.
Right.
When you look at Allentown and Bethlehem, they're gaining, okay? Not that, massive population increase is good or bad, but when you decrease, that means businesses look at you like, well, you're not a major player.
Well, what it is a when you got it right, Cass. We're a demographic piece of paper. As a businessman, they don't know about Erie, they don't know this, they don't know that. They look at our demographics, our population, our poverty rates, our medium income, previous business success,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera.
Doesn't match my
And then majority of the time, we go right into the, well, that's not going to work pile.
Yeah.
And with that being said, we better sign off. We're like,
Yep, but you know what? This is what you gotta think of. To get the city, and this is the whole area, out of the hole, is gonna take a long time. We didn't get here overnight, and we're not coming out overnight. I'll be gone probably, and so will a lot of the people. And you may be an old man by the time this gets sorted out, really. I mean, because the decisions that are made today, when you look at the towns that were behind us, that are now ahead of us, they've done this over a 40-year period.
yeah. And
Okay.
I mean, that's a good topic for next week. Different.
Yep.
I think so. So.
But it's gonna be his generation that's gotta take the lead then.
Yep. Mike hit the tunes. Thanks for calling.
See ya.
Thank you.
This has been Taxpayers Hotline with your host, Kaz Kwiatkowski and John Steiner. Thanks for watching.